There's something darker than a secret, and that's the silence that protects it. Its confession will shake you. He thought he was joining a ministry to serve God. But what he walked into was a carefully curated system of control, cover-ups, and manipulation. And the most shocking part: it wasn't just the pastor. It was the pastor's wife who knew everything and said nothing. In this exclusive story, you'll hear it all: how an innocent worker uncovered the twisted layers of spiritual abuse, and how the one woman who could have stopped it chose to remain silent. This is not just a story. It's a warning to the church. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear, most people are too afraid to say out loud.
They called her mama in church, and I believed she really was. But the kind of mother she became haunts me to this day. I began calling her mama without hesitation. I gave her honor. I defended her name. I prayed for her like my own mother. I thought she was my spiritual covering. But one thing I didn't was that she was also covering a crime. When I first joined the church, I was young and desperate for direction. I had just lost my job, my family barely respected me, and I was slipping into depression. But then someone invited me to what they called a prophetic hub, a church where God spoke often, miracles happened, and destinies were aligned. That was the first time I saw her. She wasn't just the pastor's wife. She was Mama E. The woman of grace, class, and fire. The one who stood by her husband at every altar call. The one who laid hands on women and made them cry with just a whisper. The one everyone wanted to be close to, including me. She noticed me after the second service I attended. I had lingered after everyone left, too shy to ask for prayer, but too hungry to go home. She walked up to me, wrapped in her flowing white lace, and said, "I see greatness on you. Come sit with me, my son." That sentence felt like adoption. Like someone finally saw me, not the failure, not the confused young man with too many secrets, but a vessel. Someone worthy of love. Worthy of purpose. From then on, I was always around her. She made sure I sat close during midweek services. She introduced me to Daddy, her husband, the prophet. She had me serve in the media team, then the prayer department. She called me a lawyer. She said I reminded her of her own son. I began calling her Mama without hesitation. I gave her honor. I defended her name. I prayed for her like my own mother. I thought she was my spiritual covering. But one thing I didn't was that she was also covering a crime. You see, in church, she was untouchable. No woman dressed more modestly. No one prayed longer or louder. She was the perfect, Proverbs chapter 31, wife, always smiling beside her powerful husband, reminding the women to submit to your head and protect your home at all costs. She preached women's meetings. She laid hands on barren couples. She even cast out demons during deliverance night. If the pastor was the lion, she was the lamb, gentle but firm, quiet but deadly spiritual. At least, that's what we thought. Until I started to see certain things that started to bother me. You see, it all started the night I stayed back to clean the church office. Since I had become so close to her and our pastor, I was almost always the one who cleaned the office. The pastor had gone home, or so I thought. I was unplugging the keyboard in the studio when I heard whispers behind the wall in the counseling room. Voices, heated. Familiar. One was Papa. The other wasn't Mama. At first, I thought it was a church member needing prayer. But then the whispers turned to moans. And that's when I didn't know what to believe anymore. The truth is that I didn't want to believe it. So I convinced myself I was mistaken. But it wasn't the last time. I eventually got bold enough to ask her, indirectly. I didn't say what I saw. I just mentioned that I felt disturbed by certain things happening around Papa. Her smile never left her face. She squeezed my hand and said, "My son, in every move of God, there will be warfare. Just keep serving. God will reward you." I took that to mean, don't ask questions. And I obeyed her. Like a son trying to earn love. like a sheep following a shepherd to the slaughterhouse. Looking back now, the scariest thing wasn't what she said. It was what she didn't say. How calm she was. How collected. How practiced. As if she had said those words before. As if I wasn't the first to ask. As if this had all happened many times before. I didn't know it yet, but Mama wasn't just the pastor's wife. She was his shield. And his silence. And I was about to find out just how deep her knowledge and her complicity really went. One thing is that there's a moment when your spirit breaks. Not from a beating. Not from betrayal. But from the realization that the person you trusted most chose evil and watched you drown in it. I wish I could say I left the church right after what I heard in the counseling room. I wish I could say I was bold enough, righteous enough, or even angry enough. But I wasn't. I stayed. Because Mama told me to. And when Mama speaks, in that church, you obey. She was more than a wife, she was a gatekeeper. If you wanted access to the pastor, to blessings, to opportunity, you had to go through her. But something in me couldn't rest after that night. The sound of that woman's voice, her moans, the way Papa whispered her name, it played in my mind over and over. Until the day I saw her face. She was young. Maybe 23. A fresh convert, barely 3 months in the church. The type Papa loved to call his spiritual daughters. We crossed paths after Sunday service. She was standing behind the admin office. I approached gently. "Are you okay?" I asked. She looked up at me like I wasn't supposed to see her. Like no one ever asked her that before. I can't talk about it, she said. But I said enough. And in that moment, the dots began to connect, and my stomach sank. I knew that voice. She was the one behind the wall that night. The real truth came in the form of a text message, 2 days later. I got it from a blocked number. No name. No context. Just a warning. Please don't tell Mama what you heard. She already knows. And she always protects him. I don't want to disappear. I sat with that message for hours. You know that feeling when your brain wants to protect you from trauma, so it shuts down. That was me. I stared at my wall for over 5 hours that day, trying to understand how a woman so kind, so holy, so motherly, could stand beside her husband, knowing full well what he was doing to girls like her. It wasn't just silence. It was spiritual violence. And she let it happen again and again. Once I stopped trying to deny it, the pieces began to fall into place. There were others. There was the woman who suddenly left the church after a closed-door meeting with Mama and Papa. The prayer leader who got pregnant and mysteriously relocated to another branch. The teenage girl whose parents used to sit in the front row until they stopped showing up. Every time something unusual happened, Mama was always in the middle of cleaning it up or covering it up. Her ministry wasn't intercession. It was damage control. She knew. She always knew. The scariest part. She didn't just tolerate it. She enabled it. You see, when Papa would prophesy to young women, she would stand behind them, smiling. When a sister tried to speak out, Mama would visit her at home and she would stay silent. I have heard her use statements to girls like, "The devil wants to ruin this church. Don't let him use you." She would cry spiritual tears. Quote scriptures. Blame demons. Gaslight victims into silence. She became the gatekeeper of shame. And I had once called her Mama. One thing is that my spiritual identity was tied to her. She brought me into ministry. She laid hands on me. She told me I was chosen. To walk away now felt like betraying my own calling. It felt like walking away from God. That's what abuse of power does. It twists the holy into a chain. And when they hold the key, you think it's divine, when it's really a prison. But I knew I couldn't stay silent forever. Because if she wasn't going to speak up, then maybe God wanted me to. You see, On the day I confronted her, I didn't go there to attack her. I went because my soul was drowning in silence. But what she said changed everything. I remember the day clearly. It was raining, the kind of downpour that feels almost spiritual, like God Himself is trying to cleanse the atmosphere. The main service had ended, and most people had gone home. I waited until the crowd thinned out before walking into her office. She was behind her desk, sipping tea. Calm. Radiant. As if nothing in the world was wrong. But I knew this wasn't going to be a normal conversation. I didn't know how to start. My heart was pounding. My hands were sweaty. I had rehearsed 100 different ways to say it, but when I opened my mouth, all I could manage was, "You know, don't you?" Her smile didn't fade. She set the teacup down gently. Folded her hands. I told her that I had Papa with her behind the counseling room a few weeks ago. And I know it's not the first time. There it was. The truth. Hanging in the air like a loaded gun. There was no shock in her voice. No denial. No tears. No, how could you say such a thing? Just acceptance. And that terrified me more than anything. All she said was, "You shouldn't have heard that." I was shocked and wondered at the same time. So, asked her why. Why she was okay with that. Why she was protecting him. She took a deep breath, as if what she was about to say was sacred. Because this church must not fall. I sat there, stunned. Waiting for more. She continued. "Do you think I don't cry? Do you think I haven't begged God? But when a man carries a mantle like your papa, the enemy will always try to use weak people to discredit him. I protect the vision. That's my calling." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you let him hurt people. You watch him destroy women, and you say nothing." She didn't flinch. They come to him. He doesn't chase them. And some of them want what they get. That's when I snapped. I told her that's not ministry. That's manipulation. That's spiritual abuse. That's evil. She asked me that, if you expose him, who do you think will suffer? The girls. Or the hundreds of members who depend on this church to survive? You'll ruin everything. I was shaking. But then, she asked me to be careful. Because, zeal without wisdom is how many ends up cursed. That's when it hit me, this wasn't the first confrontation she'd faced. This wasn't her first time handling someone who knew too much. She was prepared. Polished. Poisoned by years of covering sin in holy language. I looked at her and no longer saw a mother. I saw a guard dog. Protecting her kingdom. Protecting her place beside a fallen king. She traded her conscience for control. And I realized, no amount of prayer could make her speak the truth. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't shout. I just walked out, my heart shattered, my faith shaken, my mind racing. I had loved her like a mother. I had trusted her with my purpose. But that day, I saw the devil wearing a head wrap and quoting scripture. You see, in this life, some people are not silent because they are scared. Some are silent because they benefit from the darkness. And the truth. She wasn't trapped. She was committed. I thought walking away from that office would bring me clarity. Peace. Or maybe even courage. But it didn't. It brought more questions. More voices in my head. More spiritual confusion than I had ever experienced. How did a woman so respected, so feared, so anointed, become this? What broke her and made her okay with silence? I wanted to believe she was a victim too. That maybe she stayed quiet out of fear. Maybe she didn't have a choice. But then, I had made a decision not to step foot there again. And so, I didn't get to the bottom of that. But this is what I have to share with you. What I saw and witnessed with my own eyes in the body of Christ. Where leaders use the name to manipulate and control the innocent ones.
There are thousands of people sitting in churches just like this one, thinking they're in a place of healing, when they're actually inside a system of spiritual manipulation. And sometimes, the ones who smile beside the pulpit are the ones who hide the deepest secrets. If this story shook you or made you think twice, do us a favor. Like this video, it tells the algorithm this is a message that needs to be heard. Subscribe to this channel, because in every video, we uncover real-life confessions that challenge what you think you know about church. Share this video with someone who's been asking spiritual questions they are too scared to voice. Silence is how darkness grows. But telling the truth is how it dies. Thank you for watching, and remember, not every altar is holy.